Justin Nelson here with the Real Leverage podcast again, and another episode of a client of ours that has one of our virtual assistants. And so, as you know, a lot of our episodes are about in-person assistants. A lot of episodes are about virtual assistants. And Matt is, man, you are just a great story when it comes to leveraging. And so I would love to share with our audience today everything about your business, man. Welcome to the show, and thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Justin. It's my pleasure.
Of course. Well, man, I know you and I were on a mastermind call a few weeks ago and you had the Tiger King background. So I'm a little disappointed for those that are watching on YouTube that they are just seeing a very plain but cool hustle background.
So, yeah, that's right. So I wanted to display a little bit of professionalism.
I love it. I love it. Well, awesome, man. Well, I would love for you to tell the audience, because first and foremost, everybody send your referrals to Matt. If you guys are listening and I'm your friend and you're in Ohio as well, sorry, you aren't on the podcast. Matt's getting all the referrals. Matt, where's your business located out of? And tell us a little bit about, your journey. I'd love, personally, I know you pretty well, but I don't know your entire real estate journey. So I'm a little selfish here. I want to learn about it. So kind of tell us a little bit of a, quick few minute spill on who Matt is.
Absolutely. So we service the Dayton and Cincinnati markets. Home base, kind of what we call it, is in Springboro, Ohio. Okay. So it is smack dab in the middle of those two markets. So we are just, I'm running a small team out here. I'm just coming into my 4th calendar year in real estate.
Awesome.
So still relatively green behind the ears. I got started in the industry after I owned a technology company for about 20 years and sold it off. And so my wife and I decided to go ahead and get involved in real estate. And ever since then, we've been in the top 5% down here in Southwest Ohio. We've been very blessed and have experienced great success. I think last year I ended up right around 63 transactions. And it was just me as a solo agent. So anybody, you get that many and it's eat, sleep, and breathe real estate.
Yep.
And so it was great. We were having a blast. But as my wife kindly tapped me on the shoulder and she said, what good is it if you can't enjoy it? Right.
Yeah.
So in that was my life. I had the mentality that nobody could do it as good as I could, that I was the only one that could do this. So between meeting you and my real estate coach beating me over the head, we know we needed to leverage some things out. So very early, I would say late in 2019, okay. I had tried hiring a few assistants here in town, and for whatever reason, they didn't quite stick. And then you and I met at the Keller Williams event this year.
Yep.
And you have absolutely changed my world. So
no, I love that, man. And I'll tell you, I haven't changed your world. It's your VA that's changed your world.
Oh, that is no joke. So, I have learned the importance of leverage, and have quite frankly gotten probably 85% of everything off my plate. So all of the non-dollar productive items, I know that my EA can do with absolute skill and confidence. As we were talking before this started, I've got clients who just adore her, have no idea that she is not sitting in an office beside me.
Yeah.
I've had other agents and other teams compliment us on our customer service. And so it's phenomenal. It really is just remarkable. I had to get over kind of the ego a little bit of nobody can do this better than I can. Although the tools that you've given us to prepare our VA with were instrumental. So, you start that morning as you're drinking your morning cup of coffee. I just started recording everything I was doing on my computer. And then when I would get done, I would send it to her and say, this is how I want this done. This is, these are the steps. By the way, here's the raw video. Go ahead and create a document out of this as well. So now fast forward 6 months, I've got probably one of the best operations manual in the industry that I can literally hand to a client or hand to a new employee and say, this is how you do it every step of the way. So,
I love that. And it probably didn't take you like too much extra time. Like it was just kind of time on task, like repetitive every single morning, recording what you're doing. And really, you might have said a few words instead over the video, but that was probably about it.
that quite frankly was it. And so what I noticed was, and I did this on a daily basis, right? Because we all drink coffee every morning.
Yep.
So every day I would do that. And as I delegated something off my plate, the videos kept getting shorter and shorter, right? And so before I knew it, I really felt that I had overwhelmed her. I said, okay, I've given you almost everything.
Yeah.
Are you okay? Did I overwhelm you? Did I give you too much? And I don't think she ever sleeps, because all she kept saying was, no, this is perfect. Keep sending it. Give me more, give me more. And so it's just been absolutely a game changer.
I love that. So tell me a little bit about like the journey. So like, even when we met, you had already kind of gone through like tell me about like mid 2019, like even before we had met or you had tried to do any assistance, like what was at the point in your business when you were like, okay, I need an assistant? Obviously, you know, your wife tapping you on the shoulder saying you need to enjoy it. So kind of what were some of your biggest fears, even outside of no one can do it better than I can? Like, did you have any other fears, you know, when it came into getting into the VA world?
So, if we go back to 2019, my biggest fear was, right, in this industry, if you don't kill anything, you don't eat, right?
Yep.
So it was constantly grinding, constantly hustling. And while I was doing that very well, that hustle and grind creates a whole lot of paperwork, right?
Yep.
So I got to December 2019 and I was just burnt out. I was done. I had made more money in real estate than I had exceeded my wild, insane goal that I had set at the beginning of the year. Absolutely crushed it, but I was exhausted. Mentally, I was frustrated and just checked out. So I kind of told myself, all right, you deserve a little time off. And I actually ended up taking almost all of Q1 off in 2020.
Oh, awesome.
And then the pandemic hit. So I ended up taking off Q2 as well, right? So you know, things got a little tricky, but I knew at the end of the year when I just mentally couldn't go forward anymore, I had to change something, right? I love what I do. I love real estate. I'm here by choice, not by necessity. And I knew that when I started dreading going to work, or I started dreading picking up the phones, there was a real problem. And so the problem was lack of time. Right. Yeah. So the problem was just being the head cook and chief bottle washer. So I had to.
Well, and there's something to be interesting because people that are listening to this today, they're all from different markets, right? And there's something about a market like yours. Like you guys are in a sweet spot price point where agents do just mathematically more transactions per agent. So there's like California where these agents, you know, come to me and complain and go, Justin, I did 3 deals this year and I feel exhausted. And I'm like, it's like, I get it. They were $3 million deals each and you still made 300,000. Like, I get it. Like it's a harder industry because they have bigger peaks and valleys and the times between checks. And I get that. So it's a totally different pros and cons to everything. But like in a market like yours, where you guys have a price point that's pretty on par with like, if you were to take the entire United States average, like you do a lot of transaction volume and transaction count. Like there's very few people probably listening even on this podcast that have ever done 63 transactions as a solo agent. I've never even done 63 transactions as a solo agent in 1 year or even on a team. And so, you know, I can only imagine like the paperwork and the keeping up with clients and the communication with title. Like you had to do as much communication on each deal with title in all these places as those $1 million deals do times 63.
Yeah, correct. It did. It was very difficult. So
I couldn't imagine. So like when you first got, you know, regardless of whether it's a VA through us or through someone else, like what anybody's listening, if they're going to go get leverage and it's an in-person assistant, a VA, whatever it is, when they find the right person, they go through that process, whatever that process looks like for them. What can you tell them? Obviously recording videos is critical, making some systems, you know, what did you start to leverage off first? You've done paperwork, lead generation, man, there's just so many things you could have done first. So like, how did you figure out what the priority of your 80% was?
So I leveraged off the first things that I hated the most, setting up showings.
Yeah.
So working immediately, I gave her access into the MLS. Yeah. So she can set up my showings for me, schedule them in my calendar, make sure that the client receives the invite, make sure all the MLS forms are filled out. And I don't like loading my own listings, right? It's just tedious. It takes too long. So I leveraged off the things that I hated the most, right? And then the next thing that I leveraged out was transaction management. So
Okay.
like you said, we scaled, we sold enough properties in 2019 that I had a pretty solid transaction plan. And so that one was really already systematized. And so it was easy to hand off and get her started, right? Because everything we do in this industry is checklist driven. So, so those were the big things that I got off my plate first and foremost. Here recently, and so, I mean, that took care of a great portion of the business, but now marketing materials, coordinating open houses, inviting vendors out. Those were all things that I could get off my plate and just have it done. And then here, our biggest milestone, my biggest milestone, I've leveraged out my email as well. So, so it's good. It allows me time to focus, to concentrate on my clients, to have those meaningful conversations and know that everything's happening on the back end. And that it's all been taken care of.
I love that. I love that. So, where do you see, so obviously you did 63, you took a few quarters off this year to kind of reset, kind of regear. Like, where do you see that you can achieve with the VA that you have now, with the right person in place? Like, what do you think you can achieve number wise or goal wise without having to, be that stressed, not having fun, 80-hour week? Like, what do you think you guys can achieve now with that leverage in place?
Well, and I was actually just running these numbers earlier this week. So last year, 2019, my top performing month, I had 11 under contract at one time. And I can specifically remember losing years off my life trying to manage 11 contracts, right? So fast forward a year, I've got 12 under contract right now, and I have time to sit down and do a podcast. Right? So, where do we go? Realistically, there's no reason why we can't be doing 125 or 130 transactions just with what we have in place today.
Gotcha. I love that. So, I mean, even if you didn't grow anything past that, you've doubled your business and have a few extra hours compared to where you originally were.
Yeah, correct. Absolutely.
I love that. Now, do you ever have plans to grow a team in terms of buyers agents, listing agents, or are you just like, man, we're a well-oiled machine, we're going to stay like this?
So that's a great question. And you've just caught me at a point in my business where I'm really thinking about that. Right. So I don't know. I'm going to say to be determined.
Well, that's really cool, because what I like about it is, from like my point of view, that like no matter which way you go, you're in such a great position because you got a manual, right? Whether it's you making tweaks on your business to figure out how to squeeze more out of just you two, or if it's you looking to bring on people, like you've already gotten the manual to be able to make those small tweaks and, bring on people with a lot less stress, if that is something you ever decide to do down the road.
Yeah, that's been a huge adjustment, because now I've freed up enough time I can work on my business, right? Instead of being in it every day. So just from kind of a vision standpoint, it's been tremendous.
I love that. I love that. Now, you don't need to give our audience the exact numbers, but I think a lot of people that think about the virtual assistant world, they're a little bit skeptical of like, wait, what is actually a good income in the Philippines, right? Or like, what are we actually, are they earning a good living? Like, how does this all work, right? Because there's just such a shocking difference between currency exchanges and how our countries work differently. And so roughly your price point, or like, what's your rough average price point per home?
About $213,000.
Okay, cool. So average commission check anywhere between 3,500 and 7,000, depending on the deal.
Correct.
Perfect. So is it fair to say that you don't spend more than a few commission checks a year for the entire year of your VA?
For the entire year. So we can talk about the skepticism, because if you remember when you and I first met, okay, it's too good to be true, right?
Yeah.
And as your grandma used to say, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So I was probably one of your most skeptical clients until we started the process. Now, fast forward 6 months, and I'm here to tell you it just changed the business. It completely has changed.
Well, and what I love is like, even like, I know you've bonused your VA over time as they've hit their milestones, and you keep increasing pay, and you're doing all the right things. And what I like is, even if you were to make your VA one of the best paid VAs in their entire country, and they're just living a rock star lifestyle, it's still nowhere near what a full-time assistant would be here.
That's correct. Hands down. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah.
Now remind me, how much did your VA start off with? You don't need to tell me where she's at now, but where did she start off with you per hour wise? Where did we start off with her?
US dollar, I think we went a probation period of about $3 an hour.
Okay.
So, and then based on your recommendations, we don't necessarily raise the hourly rate too much. We bonus upon success, right?
Love
So when the team, because it's a team effort, and I stress that every day on our calls, this is a team effort. So when the team succeeds, everybody succeeds. And so every closing my VA gets a little bit of a bonus.
I love that. Now, you just said something really small that I wanted to point out. You said every day on our calls. So a lot of people are wondering how often do you speak? Like, for some reason, people think that a VA is just like a mystical person that they never see, they never talk to, that they just send, the pigeon, note to them to get something done. Like, tell me about how you guys communicate. How do you communicate with your VA? And like, do you do Zoom calls like this? Do you talk via cell phone? Do you text? Do you Facebook message? Like, how do you communicate with your VA? And what's the like time of response back and forth look like for you?
Sure, absolutely. So communication's key, right? We're in the real estate industry. We know this. When you're hiring a VA, just take out the virtual part, right? You're hiring an assistant. So just pretend this assistant sits right next to you. How often are you talking to another employee? Your assistant's only going to be as good as your training, right? Or is only as good as your communication. And I am probably the worst offender of that because I have all sorts of stuff in my head.
Yeah.
I don't get it out of my head and on paper. Not only does it not get done, my assistant has no idea, right? So we knew communication was huge. So we do Zoom calls, scheduled Zoom calls every Monday, every Friday. So beginning of the week, end of the week. We use a lot of Google Chat.
Okay.
And then I gave her a Google Voice number. So we do text back and forth as well. And then she leaves a video bridge up almost all day. So that if I need to pop in and say, anything real quick, hey, by the way, there's this or there's that. I can just pop it into her office.
I love that. Now, what did you just call that?
What's that? The
video?
The Zoom. She nails up a Zoom call.
I love it. So she's basically just sitting on an open Zoom link all day. And it's kind of like, it'd be kind of like if you had an assistant on the other side of your wall. Correct. And you just wanted to hop in and say hi real fast virtually.
Yeah, correct. But we do use Google Chat a lot because it's installed on my cell phone. So she's got full visibility into my schedule. So even if she knows I'm meeting with a client or I'm out, she'll ping me with an instant message. Her response time is almost immediate, right? So in the Philippines, they call it the graveyard shift. We call it third shift.
Yeah.
So she has nowhere else to go because it's, 3:00 in the morning there. So she's just hanging away. But.
Yeah, no, it's one of those really interesting things because over here we would think like, the graveyard shift's a little bit more taboo. It's a little bit like less, like you don't hear as many people doing it, but their culture is so built on the graveyard shift because of the call centers, them working for Chase Bank, the big places, like they don't work on a different time zone. You need to call Chase or you need to call some of the big companies over in their country that basically are the building blocks of their economy. It's all overnight. And so it's really not a lot. It's not different for a lot of them.
Very common. Yeah.
I love that. So tell me, Matt, like, a lot of people ask too, like, they're like, Justin, I want an in-person assistant because I want them to feel like family. I want to learn more about their life. Like, have you had the opportunity to like also create a culture with your VA being virtual, or kind of talk to me about that? Because obviously that can sometimes be a challenge for people when you got someone so far away.
No, we absolutely have. So, my EA, she's got 3 kids, husband works in the call center. I know I've met all of them. So I've probably spent more time getting to know her family than really probably any other employee over the last 20 years of being an entrepreneur. So it's very interesting. She knows all of my family's birth dates, sends out cards, and so we've been able to create a culture that I'm very happy with. It's
I love that.
The distance, especially in these crazy times where everybody's doing Zoom calls, right? This is the new norm. Mm-hmm. It just snaps right into place. So it's really good.
I love that. Now, one thing that, I hear a lot of people talk about when they have an assistant is they feel the pressure, like, to not be able to have their own schedule because they're assistants in the office and, they're expecting to have to go in to talk with them and meet with them. How's it been like with your assistant being virtual? Do you feel that pressure to have to show up, every single day to a certain location or meeting, or like, how does that work in your guys' world with the VA?
No, I don't have any pressure. I do have a hard-walled office right downtown Springboro, Ohio. I haven't been there. I think I stopped in to check the mail 3 weeks ago. But so we do have an office. I don't feel compelled at all. I'm very, very comfortable working out of the home office. And so you just don't have the same, thing. There's no barrier there.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. So, so kind of as we wrap up here, you're in the Dayton, Ohio market. You said you think that you can get to 140 transactions, where you are, at now. As we kind of wrap up, what do you think is the number one thing that your VA will help you do over the next year or two? And I guess my other question is, what are the big goals for you and your VA? Like, what do you guys achieve? Like, what are you striving for now? Is it better customer service? Is it better systems? Is it, like, what are your goals with your VA over the next few weeks to months?
Sure. My goal specifically, customer service, obviously, right? I feel pretty strong and confident in our customer service abilities now, but there's always room for improvement, right? The other thing, the other big goal is we'll start bringing her in behind the scenes so we can get more analytical on the business. So she'll start putting together profit and loss, what worked, what didn't. She'll start gathering some of that information so we can really start steering the ship. My big goal is that I want to be able to walk out of the office for 3 or 4 days, not touch my phone or email, and still let everything flow.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's what we're working on for this year, is to be able to sneak out of the office for a couple of days and nobody even know I'm gone.
Yeah, no, now it's your phone ringing once or twice for emergencies rather than, every little email about the inspector or this or the title or, all the small things creeping up on you.
That's correct. Yeah.
Awesome, Matt. Well, I really appreciate you being on here today with us. And, I really appreciate you. I know you're going to be coming out to the Nashville Masterminds. If anybody's listening, that's still open as well. September 24th and 25th of 2020. If you're listening to this in 2021, you missed out. You didn't catch the podcast soon enough. So Matt's going to be talking there. Matt's going to be sharing some of his onboarding stuff, just the process to have that. We'll be live streaming that as well. And if you knew that, Matt, we're actually live streaming that probably to a few hundred people.
Cool.
So that'll be super exciting. So if you guys want a replay of that, make sure to check the link below. And Matt, what's the best way that people can look you up? What company are you with right now? How can they find you? So if they got referrals for you, the whole 9 yards, how can they find you?
Absolutely. www.mattcteam.com. Head there. It's got all my contact information, and would love the referrals. Thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. I'll put his website down below here if you guys ever got anything. And I'm just telling you, if you don't have a VA through us, you might want to check it out, because not only do you get the program, you also get access to Matt and his VA, because Matt's on the weekly mastermind calls and is a wealth of knowledge of sharing. And I actually probably have like 5 emails, Matt, from your VA right now tracking me down for things that I still owe her. So I'm going to have to get off this call and track it down before I get in trouble with the boss. So I appreciate you coming on again today, Matt. And with that being said, really appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Justin.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Signing off, as always, the Real Leverage Podcast, helping you find your in-person assistants, virtual assistants, and all of the above.